welcome to Useless History with Rebecca. My name is Rebecca, and today we're talking about the history of Halloween. I'd like to address my outfit right away. I did not know what to wear for this video at all because it spans such a vast period of time. I decided to just wear the oldest costume I had. Not oldest as in the one I've had the longest, oldest as in the oldest time period. And so, here I am in my 14th century kirtle. The sleeves are not done up. This is partly because I could not find one of the laces, and partly because I just can't be bothered. I just can't. So this video was my idea, but it was inspired by Emma's suggestions, so once again, thank you, Emma. I am going to give you the highest honor I can bestow. I am going to crown you the spooky queen of this channel. So for the next 12 months, you are the spooky queen of this channel, and we applaud you. Congratulations, Emma. You're the spooky queen. Thank you. If you want to steal that title from Emma, you have to come up with a better video idea for next October. And if you're a guy that wins it, you're not the spooky king, you're still the spooky queen. I'm sorry. I should warn you, there are a lot of Irish Gaelic words in this episode, and I'm gonna try my best. In some cases, I listened to native speakers. I'm very sorry. If there's an Irish Gaelic word, I'll put it on the screen here, or if I'm over here, it'll be on the screen. Halloween is much, much older than many of us realize. The holiday we call Halloween was originally known as Samhain, and it was an ancient Celtic fire festival. That's why I'm wearing this necklace. It has a Celtic rune on it called Elhaz, or the elk, and it's a symbol for protection. I got it because my family's very Celtic. I don't know if you can tell by all of how pale I am. Samhain was celebrated around October 31st/November 1st. It was around that time. Sometimes the festival would extend for a week before or after. Samhain means summer's end, and it's also part of the word Samhainophobia. Throwback to last episode. October 31st is right between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. It functioned as the Celtic New Year, and it was by far the most important festival they celebrated, by far. It was a night when the barriers between our world and the other world were easier to cross, so you had to look out for fairies, ghosts, and deities. But what did the ancient Celts do to celebrate Samhain? A lot of Samhain traditions revolve around fire and the harvest. On Ichachana, or Samhain Day, they would let their fires burn out, all of them. Then, Druid priests would light a ritual fire on a hill called Clachtaga, which gave everyone the signal to relight their own fires, ideally from this ritual fire if possible. The symbolism here is obvious, or it should be. Samhain happens when the days are starting to get shorter and shorter. According to their mythology, the sun god Lu was in danger of being devoured by the darkness. The fires were supposed to symbolize his ability to overcome darkness. We get jack-o'-lanterns from the Celts too, although instead of pumpkins they use turnips. Pumpkins are not native to Europe. They didn't get pumpkins until they discovered America. We're moving on. The frightening faces carved into the jack-o'-lanterns were intended to scare away ghosts and demons and fairies and etc. Again, there's that theme of light overpowering the darkness. There are also a lot of Samhain traditions that revolve around the dead, because the dead were able to visit our world. A great feast would be prepared, and they would set a place at the table for their dead relatives, and then they'd have what was called a dumb supper, which is when everyone eats their food in complete silence. Afterwards, the living would tell the dead any news from the year, and then the food that had been set aside for the dead relatives would be shared with those who were less fortunate than them. Outside, they would leave offerings for demons, ghosts, fairies, etc. And everyone would wear masks, frightening masks, to protect themselves from the spirits. If there was a malevolent ghost that wanted to get you, it couldn't get you if it didn't recognize you. And that's where we get Halloween costumes, clearly. Samhain was a night suspended in time. It was the border between the new year and the old year. It didn't belong to either year. So that made places like bridges and borders and barriers dangerous places to be on Samhain. It was also a night of divination. The Celts practiced divination year-round, but it was considered to be especially powerful during Ichachana. Young girls would be able to look into a mirror and either see their future husband or the devil. So you should be careful. Also, a trend I've noticed is that around the world, the people who most enjoy divination are young women. And I don't know why. Now let's talk about how Samhain became Halloween. Ireland and Scotland were Christianized, and the church asked them to please stop celebrating pagan festivals. They did not. In the 9th century, Pope Gregory made November 1st All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day. If something is hallowed, that means that it's holy. That made the night before All Hallows' Eve. Despite the church's best efforts, even though now it was a Christian holiday, the pagan elements were not removed from the celebrations. In fact, we still have a lot of the pagan elements, like costumes, and you'll see in a second that even trick-or-treating is pagan. By this time, a practice called souling or mumming or guising became very popular. Poor children would go from house to house asking for food. They'd most often get a treat called a soul cake. Sometimes the children would use a song to ask for the soul cakes. I'd sing it, but I'd feel kinda weird about that because I don't know it super well. I have a solution. I'm gonna play it. Okay, I started learning a new instrument during quarantine. It's called the Celtic flute / the tin whistle / the penny whistle, the Celtic whistle. It's this. And it's a super simple instrument. It's a Celtic folk instrument, and I really like it. I'm not gonna play the whole thing because it's repetitive and long, but I'll play a little bit of it on my Celtic flute. It has a really sweet sound. It's so simple. I love it. I gotta warm it up. Okay. Suitably spooky, in my opinion. Halloween came to the Americas in the 19th century with Scottish and Irish immigrants. The practice of souling evolved into what we call trick-or-treating. The phrase trick or treat originated in Lethbridge, Alberta, which is not that far away from where I live. I'm not kidding. The first recorded instance in history of the phrase trick or treat being used during souling is from Lethbridge, Alberta. Canada has a lot of Scottish and Irish immigrants, particularly Scottish immigrants. I think it's really cool that trick-or-treating comes from my area. That's really cool. And I'd like to point out that trick-or-treating can be traced all the way back to when food that had been set aside for the dead would be shared with the less fortunate. So when you're trick-or-treating, you're participating in a pagan tradition. Speaking of trick-or-treating, pranks have always been a part of Halloween, but for a lot of history they were blamed on fairies. I don't like Halloween pranks. I don't like them. Please be nice to me. Now let's talk about the people who are reviving Samhain. In the past 40 or 50 years or so, Wicca, witchcraft, and general paganism have become really popular, and a lot of those people have started to try to practice Samhain more traditionally. They're called Celtic Reconstructionists. They have ritual fires, shrines for their ancestors, and they even leave offerings for fairies and ghosts. I read an article by a modern Wiccan on how she celebrates Ichachana. She says it's the perfect time for cleaning, resolutions, making changes, and remembering the past. Thank you for watching Useless History with Rebecca. I think I'm gonna have to take a break from making useless history videos for a while. I want to make other videos. I am going to close this episode with another song on the Celtic flute. It's called The King of the Fairies, and it's not associated with Samhain in particular, it's just an Irish folk song about fairies. But Samhain is a time when fairies can visit Earth, but first, I'm going to try to say Happy Halloween in Irish Gaelic. Bear with me. Ichachana hana guiv. Happy Halloween!